Hello everyone and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Adz and Ashley. If you want 15% off some surfing, camping and travelling gear, look no further. Some really cool gear on the North Core website. If you want 15% off, use the code THEGRUMPY15 capital letters and you will receive, like I said before, 15% off your purchase. On the podcast today, I have a North Devon longboarder. He's competed internationally and in the European competitions and also is in collaboration with Beau Surfboards and Jenson Surfboards. So please enjoy my conversation with Ashley Braunton. A quick point to note before the podcast starts, there was a few sound issues with the microphones during this podcast, so bear with it, but thanks for listening. Ashley Braunton, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about you then. Where did you grow
up? Born in Barnstable, but obviously given the family name, family is mostly from Braunton area. But yeah, and then moved to Braunton when I was late teens, I guess.
When did you get into surfing? Was it something that you did from school? Were you into like all the school sports, the classic, rugby and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think from as soon as we were old enough to walk, I think my dad probably threw us in the pool, so that we could swim. And then not long later, it was much the same at the beach really, straight in. I did everything really sporting at school, kind of into everything. Didn't surf that much outside of the summers, and it wasn't really until my early mid-teens that I was surfing more regularly year-round when I had the option to go by myself or with mates, really.
Oh, okay, cool. Did you start off longboarding, or did you just go with the flow of the rest of society and go straight to shortboarding?
Yeah, I think to start with, it wasn't really a choice. It was what you had. I had a board, which was a big shortboard. Like a lot of guys that you'll probably speak to locally, started at Saunton riding a shortboard and was in the water every day for as long as possible. And then it wasn't really until, I guess it was when the longboard resurgence started making its way into this country. My dad had a longboard and I just had a go on it one day, and that was kind of it really. And I always rode both, but as I got older, it sort of moved more towards riding males.
Did you find you were more pulled towards Saunton, or because from my perspective, I've been surfing here, like I said earlier, for about 15 years. Croyd's more of like a shortboardy, a little bit more peakier wave, and then Saunton's like your classic, well, it's not classic Malibu, is it? But more of your longboard wave, because you got your slow sloping beach and it breaks nice and easy, and it's more sort of designed. It's not designed. What's the word? More longboard-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, I think growing up, it wasn't. I didn't really have a choice. Most of the time, that was where my dad surfed, and then got to know people there, and that's just where your friendship sort of group is and whatever. And then when I was, like I say, going surfing with mates, when I was in my sort of early mid-teens, we surfed wherever was best really. Bearing in mind that obviously there weren't half the number of people in the water, you didn't hardly see anyone, but we would surf wherever was best. The way I look at it is, if low tide Croyd had good banks and it was 4 to 6 foot every day, I probably would never surf anywhere else. That's where I would surf. But one thing you do have with Saunton is, at a certain state of tide, you have the one bank on the beach which is consistent, it's reliable. It can be howling onshore, it can be whatever, as long as it's not gale force southerly, you're going to get something happen on that bank. So a lot of people come to Saunton and they go, well, that's shit. And you go, yeah, it's because you surfed at the wrong place at the wrong tide. But you're not going to tell them that necessarily. Most people would know nowadays anyway. But there's one good bank really, on the whole beach. But at that state of tide, through the middle of the tide, anywhere along the beach can be good. But yeah, ideally, Croyd with the right banks, with hardly any crowds, you'd surf there every day. But unfortunately, half of the southwest wants to surf there, and if the banks aren't great, it's no better than surfing anywhere else.
Yeah, well, I say unfortunately, I think it's really cool that surfing's taken off to become kind of the beast that it is now. You've got, lots of people using it as an outdoor pursuit, and I think I talked about this in the podcast with Elliot about how there were, let's call them floating debris. In fact, no, I learned I learned a really, really cool word the other day. I was listening to a David Scales podcast, a California guy who's doing some good podcasts out that way, and he used the term val.
Okay.
And it is, oh my God, I've completely forgot what it is. I'll edit this bit out. What was it now? Volatile adult learner.
Okay.
So they were calling people vals because you've got all these people trying to learn how to surf. They're all in the water, but the amount of times that they'll probably catch a wave.
Yeah.
They'll probably catch a couple of waves on a decent sesh where, if you're on your longboard or you're in the right place or you understand how it all works, you can catch loads. But these people are just in the way.
How do you solve a problem like surfing has? I don't know what the answer is. Surfing appeals to a huge number of people, and it's great, and it's one thing that I've seen in my time is the amount of women surfing. We used to know probably every woman that surfed within 100 miles because there were so few. But now you see women going on their own, women in groups, women in pairs, and they're all going in learning. It's great. And that's an example of something that's really, really good to come out of it. And it's nice that you see young lads nowadays, they go down with their mates and they go down and have a laugh. It doesn't really matter what they're riding. They're just going in for a laugh and whatever else. But if you were learning to play tennis, you'd have to go and book a tennis court. So you'd... more than likely you'd go to a tennis club, or you'd go to a coach and get the basics and everything else, and then you go for people with your own ability, and you're in that space. In the ocean, you're in a shared space. Okay, it's everyone's to use, but we all have to find a way to make it work. If you travel anywhere in the world and just turned up and paddled out on the best peak on the beach and took off on whatever wave you wanted, you wouldn't be there for very long, or certainly your tyres wouldn't be pumped up for very long. In this country, fortunately, that localism which a lot of us had to go through when we were younger, especially some of us who rode longboards, had to deal with, there were aspects of that had a fair point. They gave people the opportunity to learn and find their place in the lineup and earn it, which is still what you have to do elsewhere in the world. That does seem to have gone on the whole here, which is a very difficult thing to deal with because anyone can go in the sea and everyone has the right to go in the sea. How you make that safe for everyone is the issue.
I think that once the waves go above a certain height, there's a limited amount of people that can go out and deal with that anyway. So as it gets better, if you're looking at places, okay, I'm going to use Staunton as an example because it's just down the road from here. If people jump in on the rip on the side and they go out, past the rocks around there, I mean, any idiot that reads a book can understand that concept of using a rip to get out. Then I guess my point won't be valid, but I think people's comfort levels sit, in this country anyway, between sort of like 2 and 3 feet. Anywhere above that, I think, puts the, let's say, mid to below average person out of their comfort zone a little bit, which means that as you develop and you get better, then you will be out back with people that are a little bit more competent to pretty decent to professional level. you know, and I think it does marry its way out a little bit. I think where it does come in is during the summer months when the swell isn't that big, you know, and you have got the floating bobs in the water that you kind of like zigzagging and weaving and trying not to hit. People going out on SUPs thinking they're, you know, a surfing legend and they've never done it before. And
or an SUP foil.
Yeah, that's a different conversation altogether. But I think it does marry itself out. But like you say, we haven't got that hierarchy system here, have we? Like, you know, again, I was talking about the guys in Australia. You know, you go down to Snapper Rocks or somewhere like that where you've got, you know, a right-hand point break. You're not going to go out, like you're saying, and sit out there and then expect to catch every single wave coming through. One, because, you know, if you're that intermediate to beginner level, mid-intermediate to beginner level, you were going to get absolutely nuked on them sandbars. And two, the other guys out there aren't going to let you because it's that kind of what you're talking about.
Well, I surf Greenmount with probably 6 or 8 guys, and there was only 6 or 8 because there was a chopper following a shark, and the lifeguards called everyone out, and these guys didn't get out. I said, "Are you going to get out?" They said no, so I just sat behind them. Just so happened that a good set sort of swung in, missed the top end of the bank and came in there and stood in a full stand-up pit on a mal, and some guy just looks at me, just drops in and pulls in front of me. But I didn't really expect any different. I didn't have an expectation of any different because that's just the way it is. I'm a pasty English bloke on a longboard. But the guy's not going to let that one go through, so that's the way it is.
I watch. I'm real pasty with surfing, by the way, so you have to forgive me. I was watching a YouTube video, and it was Strider Wasilewski was talking about his first experiences on the North Shore, and he said he took off on this wave, and no one else knew him, and the guy on the shoulder was a local Hawaiian guy, and he was like, "This guy is not catching this wave," so did what you said, dropped in on him, but absolutely spunked it, wiped out himself. Strider said he got an absolute gem of a barrel come out, and the guy was kind of real sheepish because all of his mates were there, kind of going, "You should have nailed this guy," and he's just going back out like paddling as normal. And
in that situation, you got away with one, haven't you? Really?
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. Going back to sort of talking about your younger days and surfing with your friends, when did you realise that you were kind of going to stick to longboarding and that was going to be your main go-to?
I guess I fell into it really. Well, like I say, I always rode a shortboard. I just had a go. I think Tiki, I think it was, did an event with Oxbow a long time ago. I can't even remember when it was. And they brought some of the pros over with a range of boards. I can't even remember who the shaper was now. They had a trailer full of boards, and it was like an open day, go down to Croyd, have a go, and I had a go on one of these boards and it flew. And I thought, there's something about this that I've got to have a go, really. And then the Hot Doggers Surf Club were doing events, and I kind of just had a go at those for a bit of fun. And then a few of the guys went off to go and do the BLU events, so I tagged along. I was only about 15, I guess, tagged along, went along to those. By this time, I knew a little bit about longboarding. I'd watched a load of videos, obviously Joel Tudor, Bonk Perkins, and I'd seen guys like Guts at the World's Gittery, where we used to go on holiday every summer, or most summers, with my dad. So I got there, and then some of these guys are here, and some of the British guys are there, and I'm thinking, well, this is quite strange already. And then you just get to know them, and next thing you know, you're surfing with guys like Guts, Sam Bleakley, Lee Ryan, guys that have surfed at European and international stage. And I was very, very lucky that I went from that, not really riding a longboard, to riding a longboard, to doing a couple of club events, to then surfing with those guys, and then within that junior section that I was sort of just in for a couple of years before I came out of, there was a guy called Dan Harris, Welsh guy, really good surfer. Elliot was there, Ben Skinner, Adam Griffiths came along sort of a bit later on. So we had a real core around the similar age group, influenced by probably the first really top group of longboarders that the country had. And then we were pushing each other in our own little sort of bubble, and then we sort of merged into what they were doing. So it just sort of happened, really.
Yeah. So it was nothing really to do with the fact that, you know, you just enjoyed it more than shortboarding.
If I could ride a shortboard every day in perfect waves and it's quiet, I probably would, and I would probably go in the afternoons when I'm knackered on a longboard, and that would be it. And before I had a real job and responsibilities, it's kind of what we used to do, go surfing all day, whether it be on a longboard or a shortboard or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the tide was right, we'd go back to Saunton, have a surf in the evening, either on a longboard or on a plank, if someone had one that we could borrow, because we never had a big plank, you know, and just go and have a cruise. And that was often the most fun surf of the day, because you spent the rest of the day thinking, oh, should we go here, should we go there, should we do this, should we do that, which board shall I ride? And actually, when you just go and think, oh, I was just going to have a cruise, you have a laugh with your mates, you talk rubbish, and you mess about and have fun.
Here's the clinch with this. So I've got a range of a quiver from a little 5/8 fish to a 9/6 SUP, and I've never competed on a grand scale, but I've competed within the service. I've won the Navy Surfing Champs longboard, and I've won the Inter-Services longboard competition as well. And when I was sitting down the other day, actually, it was after when I was talking to Elliot, and I was thinking, what's going on here? Like, why am I like watching the WSL, I like watching the pros, I like shortboarding, but I have more fun longboarding than I do on a shortboard. And it's because you can, and I was trying to think, what was it that made it like that? One, the ease of catching waves. Two, the length of ride you can get, and the majority of places on it, because you've got the volume, you can maintain your speed down the line and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, why am I so drawn to shortboarding? I'm 40 this year. I'm never going to be the standard of a pro. Yes, I am really anal with the way that I surf, and I like to look into surf technique a lot. Again, talking about being pesty, right? But I was thinking, well, why do I always go to shortboards as opposed to my longboards? And it's because I can throw a 5'10" shortboard in the back of my car and not have to worry about all the other space that comes with it. And that is the only reason why I don't really carry a longboard around. I've got a 9.0 nose rider on order for March this year.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to getting it, because in my head I've got all these boards on a rack in my garage, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking sell them. I'm gonna sell them. I'm gonna keep a fish. I'm gonna keep a mid-length. I don't know why, but I'm gonna keep a mid-length. And
a mini mount,
or an egg, or a magic carpet, inverted commas. Yeah, one of those. It's renamed now, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm going to keep like 3 or 4 different boards. That's it. I've got 12. Don't know why I've got 12, but I have. Yeah. But I'm just going to keep the ones that I had the most fun on.
Well, for years, I was chatting about this with a mate the other day. For years, all we rode was a progressive mount. That was it. That was the only board we had. You know, we had a shortboard, but generally the shortboard only ever came out in the winter when it was pumping, you know. So we rode a progressive mount most of the time. And for years, I've been trying to tell some friends of mine that have been kind of stuck in their ways about riding a shortboard or riding a plank or riding this or riding that. Try a progressive mount. Just try it. Because we live in England. It's generally between knee high and head and half. It's generally relatively weak, and a progressive mal gives you everything. You have that paddling, you have that volume, but you can also put it vertical. You can do full roundhouses, and you ask any of the top progressive longboarders why they ride a progressive mal. A lot of these guys could do QS contests on shortboards. They're that good. Harley Ingleby, Ben Skinner, Taylor Jenson. I've seen them all. They're unbelievable shortboarders. But what do they ride? They ride a progressive longboard, because burying a rail on a 9-foot mal and being able to put it vertical, but then also being able to be perched in the pocket hanging 10 on the same wave, kind of gives you everything. But also, like I say, you've got that paddle. You can still duck dive it as long as you learn how. You've got everything you need in this country.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've talked about this on previous podcasts as well. I think people get very pent up about image.
For sure.
And, with this day and age with social media, I'm not going to rant on about that because I've done it enough. This day and age with social media, it's really easy to go, well, I want to, Philip Toledo sharp eye, because he does all these cool things. Well, what's your ability level? Is your ability level equal or just below him? Well, you're never going to reach that standard. Why are you riding a shortboard that's like a classic 90s toothpick, which we probably grew up trying to ride or riding?
Well, a lot of people that I knew grew up trying to ride them.
Yeah, man. And
we were lucky we had influences that sort of pushed us in a different direction.
Yeah, and I'm like, people are still trying to do that, and volume is your friend. Especially, look, I've interviewed, shapers and stuff in here. So if they're listening to this, or any shapers listening, forgive me, you're going to cringe like fuck. But I bought a Firewire Cymatic, Slater Design Cymatic. Okay. I did a lot of research into it. I was really interested into the Dan Thompson's concepts with the modern plane hull and all that sort of thing on it. What I really, really like about it though is it's a 510 that I've got, and the volume is really well hidden. So if you look at it, it looks like, a really kind of stereotypical shortboard that we're talking about with the nose chopped off because it's a rounded nose. But it is the most fun board I've ever been on, and it holds speed in the flat sections. It makes me surf probably better than what I should do, but it's all because of the volume and the positioning in it within the board that is able to do that. Now if I had a 510, I don't know, Paizel, John Florence board, whatever,
hang on the wall,
and I try and fucking surf that, I'll get out and snap the fucker in half. Because it won't ride the same, because it hasn't got the volume in the correct places, and it isn't thicker.
So in the last, say month or so, there was a day we surfed Croydon. I managed to get the day off thanks to my very kind boss, and we surfed. Unfortunately it was mid to high tide, but it is what it is. But it was a good sized day, fairly clean, it was best it'd been for a while, and there must have been at least 100 guys in the water, at least. And barring a couple of sort of local guys that have surfed Croydon for years and years and years, who were on their shortboards that have probably got a little bit of volume in them now, a bit bigger than they would have ridden when they were younger, the guys getting the most waves were the guys on performance mals. And Stu Pointer was out there, he was on his talk, which I don't know how big it is, but
he's got an M2, I think it's like 7.4 or something. Yeah.
He was getting any wave he wanted, and there were so many guys. They were having a they were having a good day, and we had had a chat with loads of random people and all the rest of it. But most of them weren't getting waves, and there was the same 6 or 8 guys going in circles, getting wave after wave, and you just. That it's up to them what they want to do. I'm not going to go and tell everyone to go and buy a bigger volume board, but they should. Because the more time you're on your feet, the more time you go, the better you're going to progress. And for me, that's what I want to do. I want to progress.
I think, the point that you just brought up there is that I want to catch lots of waves and I want to have fun. I get a lot of people coming to talk to me, you know, because they know I'm into surfing, and obviously I've started this podcast up on, you know, what I'm doing is getting out there a little bit more, and that, you know, I get asked, you know, what board should I get to start? I started off on a shortboard when I was 14. I bought this fucking Tombstone toothpick that I bought in Freshwater West. I never really rode it properly, but then I bought a longboard a couple of years later from the board house down in Newquay. Okay. Bought this 9-foot longboard, and I learnt to surf on a longboard. And that's where kind of my love of it comes from a little bit, because when I say to people, right, what you need is this, and they're like, well, you know, I went to this shop and this shop told me I need to get this 8-2 mini-mal mid-length egg, whatever you want to call it, and I'm like, that's brilliant, but you're 6'2" and you're 98 kilos. You're going to get in the water maybe once or twice a year on holiday with your family. You're not going to enjoy that experience because you're just not going to catch anything, and you need to buy a longboard. Buy anything from 9 foot, nice and wide, nice and thick, even if it's like, you know, these soft tops that people are buying now. You'll have more fun on that, and your kids can get on it and blah blah blah. And I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10 they go, cheers shit lips, and they'll go down the road, or they'll go on to Amazon, which is a new good one, or like the Decathlons, what is it, Go Outdoors sell surfboards now, and they'll go and buy this mid-length
because it's cool,
and then they'll just have a shit time on it, and it breaks me a little bit. But then the people that do, you know, I'm not saying my advice is, you know, God's word, but
it's pretty simple advice.
It is though, isn't it? Length, volume, width, more wave count, more fun. Simple. And that's the whole point, right?
Simple. Yeah, and if you can do that in amongst everyone else doing the same thing and everyone's safe, there is nothing more to it.
Out to the people and all that.
The amount of times we'll be surfing Staunton and it's 2 foot, maybe a bit more, and it's pretty dribbly, and you see someone paddle out on some 5'8" low volume. I wouldn't even know what it is. I had best part of 5 years out of the water, and I've come back to this almost alien world because some things have gone so advanced. I'm just still catching up, and people paddle out on these little tiny boards, and people are, oh, that's a so and so. They don't catch any waves, and I think, well, you spent loads of money on all that gear. You've come all the way down, and actually, what you really need is probably a 7.6 foamy. And then you get the guys that ride shortboards, some of the guys from the surf school, and it's 2 foot. They come out on foamies, and these guys can surf, you know, pretty well. Some of them rip, and they'll come out on foamy, and they have a great time because they, you know, these guys can surf and they can see the benefit of riding a board with a load of volume when the surf shit.
Yeah. I've got this really pet hate, and this is where the grumpy surfer's going to come into it massively. Is I've got this real pet hate with going down to Staunton with my longboard, knowing full well that, you know, what the type of wave it is. Really not too steep wave until it gets a little bit bigger. Really mellow, really chilled out, and you see these guys rocking down there with your Machado Seasides 5'8" because he says you need to surf it 4 inches shorter, or your Pizels, or even, I mean, you know, you've seen these retro fishes are supposed to be wide and thick and to be able to catch the smaller waves but also surf the bigger waves. But I see them going down into the water, and I know full well that all they're going to do is basically not even sit on the inside, sit on the shore break, and it's not even a strong shore break either. And I'm like, what are you doing? Go around the corner.
Yeah, like you said before, though, nowadays the scope for people to just watch videos on Surfline or wherever it may be and order that, wow, I love that board, that sounds perfect for me, and order it, you know, without realising that actually that average surfer in California has probably been surfing for 20 years, and he's not the average surfer who lives in London who go surfing 4 or 5 times a year, totally different thing. And there was a big issue in the sort of 90s, really, where surfing was growing so fast that surf shops could sell pretty much anything to anyone. There were so many customers, it didn't really matter, and there were a lot of shops that were guilty of doing it. But I really think that now we are moving out of that time. I'm sure they still exist. I'm sure there's people that work in surf shops that get a commission or whatever and will sell the wrong kit. But I do like to think that actually the feedback that I hear and the stuff that I see is that the majority of people now do tend to be getting sold the right thing if they go to a surf shop, as opposed to buying online, which is what it used to be like before my time, really. It was about going in, looking at boards, understanding them, talking to people that have used them, and then putting that into, right, what do I need? What do I really need? Do I really need that 1,400 quid carbon board? Or do I need that 500 quid well-made mini mal that's going to do me for the next 5 years? You know, or should I go and buy a Firewire shortboard for whatever they are, 700 quid? That's probably going to almost give me the volume, but it's too soon. I'm not ready for that yet. Start with what you really need, and don't spend loads of money on it, really, because learning, you're going to batter it, you're going to headbutt it, you're going to drop it, and that's, I think, a key thing that has been lost a little bit.
Trying to tell people to buy a second-hand board as well, like on
100%.
Second-hand Surfboards UK or something like that, because they have there's so many websites out there at the moment that are selling second-hand boards, whether it's a Facebook page or something like that, you know. And again, we're going back to trying to tell somebody that's trying to get into a inverted commas lifestyle stroke sport what would be best for them, knowing full well that, you know, they're going to drag their leash down, or their kids are going to drag the board by the leash down the beach to the sea, which is just going to fuck it up, spending a lot of money on something before they can competently do something. And whether they stick to it or not, again, that's another thing as well, spending lots of money on something that they're going to use once a year, and then it's going to stay in their garage, and then it's going to come out and it's still going to have the same wax job as it did January or August, you know, the year before.
It's half run off.
Yeah, because of the heat. It's all stuck to the inside of the bag and stuff. You know, it's quite a difficult thing, really. Let's talk about your competition career. You said you were surfing with Ben Skinner and a couple of the other guys. You know, how did going from surfing with those guys then sort of convert into, you know, doing competitions and all that sort of thing?
It's one of those sort of things that until you look back on, you don't really think about it. You just sort of get into that routine of doing it. For me, a lot of people, there's a real thing out there of people being anti-contest surfing, and surf contests are totally against the ethos of surfing and things like that. And I get that. I understand where they're coming from. I still love surfing for the same reasons that they love surfing, the freedom and everything else, and getting away from it. But I am naturally a bit competitive. I'm a man, and most men are a bit competitive, whether we like it or not. Everything you do, you want to win to a degree. It doesn't mean it's the be all and end all, and there's always obviously scales of it. But I wanted to surf better, and let's be honest, if you surf within your area and you get to a certain standard, you are one of the biggest fish in the pond. If I was to go and surf low tide Croyd with all the guys there on a well, it wouldn't be a 6.0, I'm too heavy, but on a small shortboard, it would have been a long time before I'd ever got to get to the point where I'd want to sort of compete. But with longboarding, if I wanted to improve, I needed to surf with better surfers. So competing was the way of doing that. And also you get to surf with guys that rip. Well, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that. If I had the money, I'd go around the world to all the world events to see the best guys in the world, because that is the best way to improve. And if you love a sport, that's what you want to do. If someone loved Formula One, I hate it, some people love it. If they had the money, they'd probably go to every Formula One race, because that's what you love. So for me, going to see the best guys was that opportunity. and competing at the same time was just part of that, really.
What were your competing credentials? Do you know?
What did I achieve?
What did you achieve? Yeah.
A mixed bag. One British junior title. I won a BLU tour event. 9th at the Europeans. Went out to Elliot actually, and I think it was Elliot and Antoine Del Perro. So that's nothing to. I wasn't too fussed about losing to those guys, but yeah, I did an international event in Biarritz and missed my heat, which I had a good draw, and I was probably the best I'd been surfing ever. And they ran the contest the morning. It was smaller than it had been previously, and yeah, schoolboy error, missed the heat. So that was an opportunity missed. Went to the Worlds in Costa Rica. Walked my first heat, no problem at all. Confident, loved the wave. Second heat, bottled it. Just nerves and everything else. So a real mixed bag. I won an event when I was about 18 at Fistral. Got out of the water and there's TV cameras and everything else there, interviewing Ben Skinner and all the rest of it. I think I got a 10 and a 9 in the final. I walked up and some bloke just leant over and just gave me the check as I walked past, and that was it. And they weren't interested because I wasn't from there. I wasn't one of those. So that's another conversation. But
yeah, that's it. I think the whole, for me as a sport, you know, being the job I am, you know, my job's to promote sport, put teams out, not during the COVID period, but you know, get people into sport, promote it, adventure training, get people outdoors and all that sort of thing, and you know, have insight into how each sport is, you know, progressively, how you train for competition. I think one of the big things we're missing, considering we're an island, is that we are missing a big thing here with Surf GB, with having programs for kids up and coming. Now, I was going to ask you a question where you were mid-story there. I know the answer to it already.
Okay.
You know, and I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to answer it for you. Now, you can correct me. During your entire competition career, did you have anyone telling you about your technique? You know, saying you need to do this, this and this right. You're deficient in this area, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's paddle strength or anything like that. You're shaking your head. I know the answer already. I know the answer is no, because it's... Am I right or wrong?
We had each other.
Yes.
We had each other.
But you didn't have a professional coach. And I'm talking more about like the Aussie programs, and you know, that have been going since what, the late 70s, and the American programs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you think that we've had, what, Ben Skinner's won 11 European titles, Elliot's won a couple of European titles, probably could have won more if he didn't stop competing. Sam Bleakley, Guts, was 5th in the world. You know, we've had guys that have performed at the highest level. You've got Adam Griffiths, Ben Howie, and like I say, Skinner. They've all had good results at big international events. Without any of that, if you look at the French team, they've had government funding, coaching programs for decades. So they have got, in the longboard scene, they've got Antoine and Edouard, and not a huge amount below them. There are a lot of good surfers there that perhaps aren't quite to that level. So we've got the talent without that program. So imagine what we could have if we had something in place. Now, in theory, the government has provided funding for surfing. Finally, surfing wasn't recognised as a sport. That's what a lot of people don't realise. Surfing was never recognised as a sport in this country, which is why it couldn't obtain any funding.
We had two different governing bodies that were fighting over
which
each other.
didn't help. So we've now, in theory, got this funding. What we need to know is how is that funding going to be implemented? Because you've then got to distribute that within more different governing bodies of different structures. One might be very organised, one might still be like an old surf club because it's run by volunteers who don't have a huge amount of time.
Well, here's your comparison. So, you know, we were talking about Chris Sherrington earlier. you know, you've got so many guys that are martial artists, judo guys that are top level. But within the country, bearing in mind we are a very small country compared to like, you know, America, France, Spain, Russia, all these other countries. You know, we'd fit 40 or 50 times into there. But we're still up there economically. We have, as a country, I say we, it's not like I'm in government or parliament, but we as a country will only pump a certain amount of money into GB sport for the Olympics, for European competitions. You know, it goes on. It's then the privatised companies that then pump that extra money into there. Now, surfing has only just been, you know, put into the Olympics for China, Japan. I'm going to edit that out. For Japan. So, for a new sport to be coming in, for a new sport to be coming in, and then having shitloads of money thrown at it for people to, you know, develop in a very short amount of time, bearing in mind, like, it was only voted in, 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years now, because the Olympics is this year. That's not enough time to grow a team, its ethos, its technical output, its strength and conditioning programs, specifically for a new sport to the Olympics, which is kind of a crying shame a little bit, because we've got so many really good young guys that are in the GB team that really won't have the opportunity that, like the Aussies, like the Americans, and you know who's going to win those competitions.
Yeah.
You know who's going to win them gold, silver, bronze medals. It's quite easy to figure out. Now, concentrating on an individual's own talent that has had their dad go down to the beach when they've been surfing, they've done some video analysis, and they've come back and they've watched some technique videos, or they've signed up to a program on the internet that tells them that, you know, this is how you do a top turn, this is how you do, this is compression, this is extension, this is where you need to be on the wave. The list goes on, right? Having to learn that on your own and then go and compete with maybe a couple of weeks or a month's training camp, maybe in location, maybe in Portugal, or, you know, another decent location somewhere, is not really going to cut the mustard.
We're probably a decade away, I would have thought, from apart from the odd individual. So Luke Dillon at the moment, he's a guy that's done some QSs and done quite well. He rips. He's a really, really good surfer. But he's probably our only one at the moment, which, considering we've had guys like Ruben Ash, Alan Stokes, Russell Winter, we've had those surfers that have potentially had that, or, you know, obviously Russell's on the world tour. We've only got one at the moment. So and he's entering 3-star QSs, and he's holding his own. But for us to get to the point where we've got multiples entering those events, and I know there are some youngsters that have done some of the European QSs and they've done all right, but to get multiples and for them to be consistent at that level, we've got to be 10 years away, easy. What is impressive is we do have things like Surf Development UK that Damo runs. There's Surf Solutions, which I don't know a huge amount about, but I see a lot of their videos.
Yeah.
And guys like that, and I know that there are a lot of volunteers and parents and stuff that put a lot of time into the youngsters, and the progress you can see from the surfing from the youngsters nowadays, the progress is speeding up because they've got that more professional input, but it's still from volunteers and it's still from guys pushing each other and making it happen. So it would be nice, from my point of view, having come from doing contests on a windswept beach with a Land Rover with 4 blokes that feel like they're too old to compete anymore with their glasses on trying to judge you, to then get to that level where we've had contests, where we've had commentary and live scores and everything else. It'd be nice to see that continue and that next level once that funding starts to come in, so that, like you say, those kids have got that pathway.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting concept and conversation, really, and it's one of those ones that doesn't really have a definitive answer until you have people to put the funding and backing into it as well.
So that then comes down to the biggest issue with surfing. Its commercial viability is very hard to measure. Surfing's not been in the Olympics, mainly really I think for one reason. You can't say at 2 o'clock this afternoon we're going to have the men's surfing. And in the men's surfing, say it was at 2 o'clock and there were waves and it wasn't peeing down with rain and loads of people went to watch it, and they're going to watch 2, 3, 4 blokes in the water sat around trying to pick off 2 or 3 good waves each for 20 minutes, half an hour. It's not very exciting, is it, unless you're a surf fan or if the surf's pumping. But if it's 2 foot on shore, people aren't going to stay and watch it. So that's where the wave pool development really sped up, was the fact that all of a sudden you can have surfing at 2 o'clock because it's in a wave pool. You can put it in a stadium, you can put stands around it, whatever you like. And you know those guys can have 4 waves in whatever, 15, 20 minutes each, and that's it. Then you can have sponsors. So the sponsors are guaranteed the TV coverage, they're guaranteed the stadium being filled, etc, etc, etc. The sponsors really in Surfing for Surf contests do it for the love and, you know, to help out surfing really and help out the surfers in the past. But is wave pool surfing what people want to watch, and is it what they want to do? Because I know for a fact that none of my mates watch the event that's at the surf ranch. I don't watch it. I tried to watch it, I couldn't watch it. It's not the same thing. So then you've got that issue comes into it. Ultimately, we've got to decide that I think that surfing is going to split slightly. It's going to go really commercial on one front, and then on the rest of us are just pretty much going to carry on.
The wave pool thing's an interesting story as well, because there's land permission being given halfway up the M5 in Cullompton. I think it's around that area. I saw an article somewhere as well saying that there's a wave pool has been commissioned to be built on the east side of Birmingham as well.
My understanding is that Birmingham's confirmed, London is pending. I don't know anything about the one at Junction 27 other than the plans that I've seen the pictures of.
Yeah, no, I think we must have seen the same article about it. Inevitably, it's a good thing because you're going to get lots of people involved. Inevitably, we want people to get involved and have an energetic outdoor pursuit, because that's what surfing is. It's an outdoor pursuit, but then you're going to take away. It depends what you're into. If you're in for the purist thing where it's all about travelling and meeting new people, surfing new waves, you can still do that, but I think the wave pool is going to take away a little bit. It's like the North Shore film, isn't it? Where the guy in Arizona wins the surf contest and he goes, right, I'm going to Hawaii, and tells his mum, sells his stuff, and out he goes, and then he goes out there and he goes, oh, I want to be the best surfer in the world, and he goes out in this real crap 20, and then,
Well, I spoke to an instructor at Saunton who had a young lad who surfed, he's only surfed at the wave. Apparently surfs fairly well. He came to Saunton and he couldn't get to his feet.
Oh, really?
No, and I think that's the other thing that wave pools add. I went to the wave once a little while ago with some mates, and there were a couple of guys there that had it wired. Not fantastic surfers, intermediate surfers, but they had it wired. They knew exactly what every wave was going to do, because the people say every wave's the same. It's not. It does move around, and you can see that. And it'd be interesting to see whether you get, let's be realistic about it, rich kids that get more time there. What's going to happen if they do that, but competitive surfing does predominantly stay at the beach? Because are they going to be able to transfer that? Obviously some will.
I think from a skill acquisition point of view, the motor response from being able to do these turns. Let's say they surf at the wave pool, and then they have some technical advice as well, whether it's video footage or whatever, right? Brilliant, technically sound, but then what you don't have in a wave pool, really, what I was just thinking from what you were saying there is, you don't have the proprioceptive responses, whether it's, you know, when you jump onto a wave in the ocean, it's moving. Let's call it, let's go real Chad, let's go real cheesy. It's a life force, right? Okay. It's not going to be like the wave pool. It pumps through, it's a static bit of water. Yes, the current does get stronger as the sets go on. It's inevitable of the beast because, well, all it is just pushing water. Yeah. But you haven't got those different energies coming from different directions like the ocean has. And then your proprioceptive responses to, you know, to your pop-up in those different situations. An ocean surfer is going to be more responsive to that and adaptive to the conditions in lots of different areas, just because he's had practice there, as opposed to somebody that hasn't and has been in the wave pool. Now, the person in the wave pool might be technically better, but then they're so used to reading a motorized, like a point break, if it was perfect all the time, so used to reading that all the time. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, in the ocean, let's call it I don't know, a perfect day at Uluwatu, right? Lots of people out, and you're going to paddle for that wave. It's crystal clear, like a wave pool. It's breaking perfectly down the reef, but you're not going to have that guy that's a little bit further down that's going to paddle into it and chandelier that wave and collapse it. How are you going to get around that section? You know, are you going to drop deeper, regain your speed, pump, go around it? Yeah. And it's all about reading. And I think that's where it's going to miss out a little bit.
Maybe, yeah. I think the key thing from the really good thing about the wave pools is the community initiatives, the mental health initiatives, getting the kids in and everything else. And that was one thing that I took away from going to the wave that was really cool. The amount of people that were going in, having lessons, and they were stoked. It was cold, but they were loving it. And that's brilliant. And the other thing for them is they are an amazing training tool for those youngsters, but the best surfers are still going to come from the beach. They can use those as a training tool. It will just be interesting with competitive surfing, like I was saying about people learning to surf or progressing to surf in a pool. If they have contests in a pool, which is going to happen? But I think we're probably, again, 10 years away from seeing that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that far away. I think if you look at the Olympics this year, it's going to be in the ocean. What's going to happen if the Olympics are held in, I don't know, I was going to say Russia, but that's not really going to happen. If you somewhere like, I don't know,
States.
Yeah, Atlanta, it gets held there again. What, you're going to fly everyone 9 hours to the beach? I think I read an article somewhere about France. You know, France holding, but you know, Chopu is in a.
Oh, of course, yes.
In a French colonised area. So even though the Olympics is going to be held in Europe, yeah, the actual surfing contest is going to be the other side of the world in Tahiti. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if surfing does stay within the Olympics and in that competition format, you know, how that kind of pans out.
Yeah. But then isn't breakdancing in the Olympics?
Man, I couldn't tell you.
I think it is this time. So anything's possible.
I'll tell you what's the coolest thing that I think.
I can say that because I can't dance.
Yeah. As long as it's that, like, you know, Strictly Come Dancing with all the celebrities that have won those over all the different countries going to it, it's going to turn to like the Eurovision Song Contest or something.
We'll see. But yeah, apparently breakdancing is in there.
Yeah. Where do you see British surfing as a whole going then?
I don't really know. I think obviously I speak more from a longboard scene, but the competitive side of British surfing was really strong for a while, really strong. You had the UK Pro Surf Tour doing its thing for the shortboarders. There was money. Okay, the guys probably were only just covering their costs, but they were going to good waves. They had events around the country. The British Longboard Union Tour, okay, it was predominantly Cornish based. We had an event at Saunton. There was a lot of work to try and get events other places in the country, but it is difficult, especially, as I say, with volunteers and everything else. But we used to, for a club contest at Saunton, I remember, I think it was 50 competitors for one event, and for a BLU in Cornwall wasn't far off, maybe 40. Now I think you're looking at maybe 20 to 30, and that's across all divisions. The cost to do those events and what you gain back from it, they only really benefit the guys at the top because they need their ranking points, or they need their seeding, or whatever it may be. What we had before was we had club contests at Saunton where we had guys that wanted to progress within surfing. They came along, they got to compete with guys like Elliot, and sometimes Ben might come up, or James Parry, or guys like that. They get to see those guys surf, and that sort of spurred them on, drove them on. They got to compete with them. I've spoken to people that have paid an entry fee for a contest, and they've just sat and watched, because to them that's worth every penny. And there was that progression all the way through, and then obviously you had guys like myself trying to push those guys at the top, and occasionally breaking through and winning a few events. And then you had that progression from there to the British Longboard Union events, British Championships, English Championships, and a few of the guys that were doing okay in the club events would come along and they might have a go, and you had that natural progression. That's not really there. COVID is clearly not going to help that situation at the moment. But so when I came back to surfing, most of the guys that I was competing with aren't there, and that's a real shame. But then the first probably 2-3 months that I got back into the water, I surfed at Saunton, and I probably knew less than 5 people in the water any day. And before, we used to surf and there would be sort of a pack of about maybe 20 guys, and everyone knew each other, and there was a load of banter and everything else, and a lot of that's gone now, which is a real shame.
Why did you take your 5-year out?
I got a proper job, got offered a proper job, which I was very lucky, and I took that, and it was in sales, and it progressed, more and more responsibility, more and more time away, hardly ever home. By the time I got home on a Friday, I'd done really long weeks. I was shattered, lost my fitness, bad back from driving, and whenever I tried to surf, I just felt awful, and then before you knew it, I wasn't surfing at all. And then I got married, and as part of my best man's speech, I had 5 best men, they were all on my case about getting back in the water as part of the best man's speech. And then a week before I resigned from my job, I got made redundant. So I took up another job locally, which freed me up, gave me the time at home that I wanted, and then slowly but surely I've got back in the water.
Are you a believer in fate or destiny?
Not really, no.
No.
No. Sorry.
I'm only asking that because, through my experiences and the things I've seen and the things I've done, my kind of philosophy behind everything is everybody kind of has a path. Now, whether that path is written for them or not, I don't know. It's going a little bit deep. I'm not going to go down that road. Yeah. But what I kind of philosophically, I think that things do happen for a reason sometimes, and I think the world, the ocean, Huey, inverted commas, kind of speaks to people in different ways. Now, whether it's, whether it was a good thing, it wouldn't have been at the time probably a good thing that you would recognise, being made redundant from that job. However, you know, if you hadn't, even though you were going to resign, there could have been that period where you're going, do you know what, I don't actually want to do that. But then, because it's kind of made you do that, then, you know, you've had more family time, and you're back here, and, you know, you're in the water a little bit more, and I don't know, maybe things are supposed to fall into place, but then you could counter-argue with that, where some people are just shit out of luck all the time and don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think in the back of your mind, you know, to a degree, what you really want to be doing. It's just trying to make that fit in with how your life's going, and some people are really good at that, and some people aren't very good at it, and that's kind of where I see it, is trying to, you know, we've all got to make our way, and if you can make your way doing what you want to do and everyone's happy, then you're doing pretty well, and you're in a pretty good position, because some people have to make huge sacrifices just to have very small things. So
yeah,
if that's one thing that I've learned, is actually I probably didn't have the head for competing back then. I either took it too seriously, not seriously enough, got worked up more than I should, or, you know, when things weren't going my way. Whereas now, I couldn't really care. Like, if I do kind of go and do some contests again, I don't really care. The only reason I would like to do them is I'd like to see those guys again. I do miss that social scene. I'm sure you'll speak to other people and say the same thing. It's a small world, the surfing world, but the longboard community is really small. It's surprisingly small, and it's really supportive. And that's something that I sort of didn't realise till I wasn't in it, that I missed it. So competing for me now is something that I'd like to do, because I'd like to know where I'm at and how far away I am from where I'd like to be, and then potentially down the line, you know, maybe have a crack. I'm not quite in a wheelchair yet, even though my body does tell me sometimes. So we don't know, do we? We don't know what's going to happen next week.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
100%. What are you surfing at the moment?
So I just recently, I was again very, very lucky. So after my time out the water, I came back. I contacted the guys at Surftech UK, because I've been riding for them, and they, without a hesitation, said, "Yeah, we want to work together again." So I've been riding boards for them, and then I just kind of, I saw what was going on with the Thunderbolt boards, obviously following what's going on with Ben, and seeing him ride them, Adam Griffiths ride them, Ben Howie, and seeing how they're surfing. And you know, if I want to be surfing back anything like that level that I want to be at, I thought I'm you know, there's got to be a reason why they're all riding them. So I spoke to the guys who, you know, massive thanks to them for supporting me for so long. That must be like 10 years now. And I said, I just want to, I don't want to be tied to one thing. I just want to go and try some other stuff that's out there. Because, like I say, 5 years out, pretty much 5 years out, I don't know hardly anything. You'll know more technically about boards and fins and wetsuits than I do by a long, long way. So I'm riding currently a Taylor Jenson Gem Thunderbolt, which is the full carbon, the black. Glenn at Surfed Out has very kindly had a chat with myself and Phil Hill, another local longboarder, surfed really well. And he sort of said to us, look, I've got these boards, I've got some kit here, we don't sort of surf to that high a level necessarily, we don't have the experience. Any chance you could just have a go on a few things, try a few things out, and give us the feedback that we can sort of direct the customers the right way. So that's what I'm riding at the moment. I love the look of it beforehand, but it's an epic board, but what a strange thing to ride to start with. Have you tried Thunderbolt?
I haven't. No, I've seen the technology that's been pushed out there. I've seen the speed. I've seen a few videos that you've posted. Because, again, forgive my ignorance, but even though I said earlier I enjoy longboarding more, I more look at the tech and the shapes of shortboards. But from watching a couple of videos that you put out, you know, the speed that you can generate out of that longboard is epic.
I literally rode it for. Bear in mind, I'm still making mistakes that I was making a long time ago. I'll have a brilliant wave, and I think, oh yeah, it's cool. I'm getting there. And all of a sudden, I'll totally kook it, and I'll be like, no, I'm still a long way off. But I had a couple of waves, and I literally couldn't control the speed. I didn't know what to do with it. I hadn't gone that far since I was a lot younger, riding real high performance Stewarts that Ben and I used to ride. So I was a bit like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to control the speed. I knew that speed was going to allow me to do as much and more than I was doing in the past. But how do I control that speed? Because I'm so out of practice, I don't really know what to do with it. So I had a couple of surfs. I surfed Limouth one day. It was a good size, and the thing was humming. I was going that fast. I thought I'll just go down the line. I'll just keep going. It's fine. And I was making waves from Main Peak to the river, mid to high tide, easy. I was going around sections that I never would have got around on other boards, and that's not detrimental to boards that I've ridden, but I've never ridden boards that go this fast. So I reached out to Taylor Jenson, and he doesn't really know me. We met once about 25 years ago. So I messaged him and said, any advice on fins, because I can't control this thing. Every time I'm going into a turn, I'm coming out going twice the speed and I'm falling off. And he said to me, he reckons it took him about 2 months to get any kind of real control over it. Had a chat about fin setups, which was great. So I've got a fin setup kind of close to what he would use. And all of a sudden, we went for a surf at Saunton's, but Beau came up and we had a surf at Saunton. And that was when one of the videos, the bigger day. And because it was a bit onshore, I kind of had to take a bit off the turns. I didn't want to fluff any waves, because a big day like that, you're only going to get so many.
Yep.
And so a fair old paddle back round in the rip.
Sure is.
By the time I was taking maybe quarter to half of the effort off the bottom turns, all of a sudden it was working, and I was realising I was trying to turn it like any other board before, and you don't need to. The thing flexes and accelerates so fast that it's doing the work for you. And once you learn to let it do its thing and control it, actually it's half the effort to surf. It's just getting used to it. So I'm just at the point, obviously we've just had a couple of weeks of no real waves, but I'm just at the point now where I'm starting to feel like I've kind of got a lead on this tiger that's trying to run away. But the technology is unbelievable. It really is next level.
What was it like surfing with Beau over here in Sutton?
He hasn't changed. He was ripping, and he's like a fish. Yeah, he was riding some knackered, I think it was like 5'8", 5'10" thing that he had shaped that was beaten to hell. He obviously loved it and ran it for a long time, and he was absolutely ripping, getting twice as many waves as everyone else. But it was a good day. It was what you saw, I don't know, head high, maybe a bit more onshore. There was a couple of us on mouths, a load of guys on shortboards, and it was a good laugh. They are the best days that so many people stay at home and, oh no, I'm not going in. And they're the best days in England.
Yeah, I'm. The weather looks pretty shit this week, but I think later on in the week I might try a couple of places down by my end, because it's on the south coast. Fortunately, where I live, the estuary mouth ruins a lot of the waves that would come up the channel, just because of the sandbank. So you have to go a little bit further east.
Are you in Exmouth itself?
I'm in a little village called Lympston.
Yeah, okay. Of course, yeah.
So I live there, but Exmouth would be what you'd call my local. Is it a local?
Yeah.
Not really a surfy beach.
Local sand.
But I've had some really good days this year and last year, the tail end, and during the summer as well, which you wouldn't believe, because it would normally be flat. And there's some sandbanks that are there at the moment that are just really, really, really good.
Yeah.
I took my 9.6 out a few weeks ago. I had a really, really good day at Sidmouth.
Okay.
Never really surfed there like that, and I was like, what is going on? It was. I've never seen it like that.
I'd like to surf it. I've seen it with waves once when I was down there working.
Yeah.
I'd like to surf it.
But when I was sat there, because I took my 9.6 up, I thought, this is typical crappy waves around where I live. And I was just sat there. There was quite a few people in the water, and I was looking around. I was looking down the beach, and all the way down towards, looking down towards further east, there was just waves breaking all the way down. I was like, I've never seen it like this. Okay. It was so good. And the groins around there, there's lots, because that whole stretch down there is, quite long.
I went to Ladram once.
Okay.
Wasn't quite doing it. Wasn't quite big enough. But,
Ladram is a really steep pebble beach.
The closest I've been to look for waves was Ladram.
Yeah, so Sidmouth is the next bit over. Yeah. It only works on a certain time of the tide.
Okay.
Down there, but Exmouth, the point down there, it's not even. I don't really want to keep. Am I giving spots away? No, I'm not. It's Exmouth, isn't it? Walking Point.
How many people can drive this?
This epic spot that's like.
Most people around here can't be bothered to drive down the road.
Yeah, fair right.
The wind's just right.
Yeah, so Walkham Point has got this bank at the moment that is really, really good, and I took my 9.6 down there, and I was just having it wasn't massive. It was like, a couple of feet, but it was just really long, nice rides, and it was just like peeling down this sandbar, and again, like I said before, I'd never really seen it like that, and it was just really nice to throw my board in my car, like working here, drive 10 minutes down the road and be able to go and surf, but then get back in and go back home and have lunch with my wife and my kids, and not have the fact that I'm gonna have to get out and then I'm gonna have to drive an hour back home. That's the only. It's beautiful where I live, don't get me wrong, and positionally it's kind of cool because I'm an hour from the south coast, hour from the north coast, so I can play with that.
And all the shop windows are bifocal as well, aren't they?
Yeah. People like walking around Bongai. Yeah. So it is cool, but it's also really nice, working back up here again, up in North Devon, and seeing all the guys again and being able to go surfing, because a lot of my friends, my surfing friends are from up here. Like what we were talking about earlier, and it's just kind of cool going, do you want to go for a surf? Because it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday or something. Like, it's working. Let's go. It's pretty cool to do that. And I think because, like I say, I'm from the Midlands, that's kind of what I miss a little bit, is that I've got people that around me that surf as well, but they're like, they live like 10 miles away or 15 or 20 miles away, or they live in Taunton, and we kind of hook up and then we go down and we all go our separate ways. And it's always been kind of my experience, and what you were talking about there, where you go surfing with your friends and all that sort of thing. For me, it's always kind of been a little bit difficult like that, because everyone's like, dispersed. It's like getting a load of pebbles and then throwing it on the floor, and that's where everyone lives, but everyone comes together in the focal point and then they move off and stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm doing what we do. Obviously you're fucking shitloads better than I am, but it's still the same experience. You still get the same thing out of it. It's kind of cool, like
100%. And this time of year outside of summer is kind of our time a little bit. This is the time that we need to, and the atmosphere in the water is so much better. I'm no angel, trust me. I have my moments in the water, but so do a lot of people. But this time of year you don't, because most people are either local or they're die hard. They're really, really keen. Everyone's there for the same reason, so everyone's got a similar frame of mind, and it's much, much easier. In the summer, you've got so many people with different priorities and different things going on. it can be really, really difficult. So this time of year, it's a bit more like, right, who's surfing, who's free Saturday, who's surfing, and then you get 2 or 3 of you, well, necessarily go together, especially at the moment, but you'll all try and hook up, and that's the chance to meet up for the week.
Yeah.
Especially when we've all got responsibilities at home.
Do you follow much of the competitions, like the WSL events, or?
I do. I used to be a sort of a die-hard follower before it became as cheesy as it is.
Do you think?
I really struggle with it, I'll be honest. I very rarely would have the commentary on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know, I don't particularly mind it.
Some of the commentators are great, but there's only so many times that you can hear Joe Tapel saying on point and things like that. It's just so Americanised that I think that's probably what it is.
But you've also got to think as well, though. And
but would I want to try and talk for 10 hours?
That's just what I was about to say.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's not necessarily criticism of them. It's just blokes talking about absolutely nothing is not that exciting. So it depends on the event. I really like I like Trestles.
Which is the final event this year.
Yeah, which could be great.
If it runs, but
yeah, if it runs. I'm not a fan of Sunset. I'd love to go and watch it in the flesh, but not for a contest. France is brilliant. I've seen that twice live, and watching that online I love. You know, in the big events, Fiji's back, which is great. But Surf Ranch is not for me. Brazil, I can't see the appeal at all. Margaret River, I don't really understand. And when was the last time Bells was good for a CT event?
About 5 years ago.
Yeah. So I struggle to watch it because, if it's pumping, and that then comes back to what we were talking about, commercial viability of surfing. It's such a difficult area. Will they? I knew that they'd try and make it pay-per-view at some point.
I don't think they will.
But I don't think they're going to be able to, because they're not going to get the viewers for the sponsors.
I was watching Chaz, or not watching, listening. He does Beach Grip. He's got that platform. What's his name now? Chaz Smith, I think his name is. He does another podcast with David Scales, and they were talking about this, about do you think the viability of and the platform of the WSL putting that pay-per-views, I don't think it will get the revenue and the uptake of it, purely for the fact because of it's the longevity.
Exactly. For me, if there's an event and it's on from 8 o'clock in the evening, I might watch it for a couple of hours before I go to bed if it's pumping. But there's other things going on, so you watch it when you can. You might have it on in the background. Are you going to pay a lot of money for something that you might not get to see? It is a really difficult one. The one thing I am looking forward to is seeing some longboard events again. Hopefully in the future, I know you're going to talk to Devon, so I'll be a bit careful. Hopefully in the future they will go back towards something that I believe is more commercially viable, which is letting the guys do what they want to do, as the Surf Relic did. I thought that their plan was a really, really good one. I hope that continues, because watching good longboarding, watching any good surfing or any good sport is great. And I know the guys that ride shortboards that have watched some longboard events, and they pretty much have the same view as a lot of us. As they look at it and go, oh, he was really cool to watch, or that was a really good heat, but that was really slow, or because it's not their thing. I watched a bit of the Trestles Surf Relic event the other day when it was pumping, and they had the logger division, and it's one of the most frustrating things you can watch. These really good surfers riding big heavy logs in overhead perfect A-frames, and I feel that the WSL is kind of forcing down that route a little bit because it's cool, and someone's convinced them that Vans or another cool single fin retro orientated brand is suddenly going to give them millions if everyone goes in a straight line on the nose. I don't see it's going to happen. I think you need to keep it as exciting as possible, and the best way to keep it exciting is to let the guys do what they're good at. The World Tour used to be really good when you had Joel Tudor doing Joel Tudor's thing, which no one could touch. But you also had Bonga Perkins doing 12 o'clock Rios and full roundhouses and all the rest of it, and that's what I'd like to see, and I think that's what most competitive longboarders would like to see, and most of the guys that don't follow longboarding would like to see, which ultimately, for the commercial viability of longboarding on a world stage, that's who you've got to bring in. Does everyone want to watch people go in a straight line on one-footers? Maybe for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that just comes down to, you know, the media people and, you know, what is, you know, hitting those markers. You know, what are people looking more to watch? I mean, you've got, you know, again, I was talking about YouTube earlier. You've got the channels like Log, for instance.
Yeah.
That have got
I've just started following actually. Yeah.
Amazing content.
Yeah.
Got some really, really cool videos.
Yeah.
Everything from what we're talking about, ripping longboarding to nose riding to mid lengths, eggs, mini mouse. You know, all that.
We'll keep fishing that one.
Yeah. Mini mal. You want to see a mini mal? Yeah. No one calls them mals anymore, do they?
There's so many names I've lost track, so that's why I call them mini mals. It's an ongoing joke. Yeah. I don't know what's called what, so I just call them mini mals, and it winds people up. So
exactly. But you've got all that sort of content out there, but you've also got. I remember I was just thinking then when you were talking about it. So Bonga Perkins he was one of the most iconic people that I used to watch and you know, in videos when I was younger. So I did have longboard VHSs, that's how old I am.
Yeah, me too.
Betamax videos, as well as like shortboarding vids as well. And one of the most iconic things I remember is watching Bonga Perkins. He was on a yellow, I can only just recall it as a yellow longboard, pulling into this massive barrel at pipe.
Single fin yellows.
No, it wasn't single fin yellow, but that's one of my favourite longboarding films. But it was pulling into this barrel when everyone else was on these shortboards, and I was like, how is he doing that on that, and what is the rocker like on that board, and how are the rails engaging to keep that board without skidding out at the bottom? And it was just like in my head I can see it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when you see those iconic images and it kind of sticks with you a little bit, and that's all I can see. Whether he's wearing the gaff helmet, I can't remember, but you know, that's by the by. But I just remember that.
Yeah. And
that's what always kind of sticks with me about, you know, progressive longboarding as well. That, you know, it's not just this really cool, you know, Malibu styling Mickey Dora.
But don't get me wrong, I know there'll be people that will listen to this they'll be smiling. I do love logging, I do. Trust me, there's a lot of people that won't believe me say that, I do. But I think it has its place. As much as guys that believe that have probably got tattoos of one thing, one God, one country, as a famous saying from John Tudor, they would hate to see someone flapping on a high performance mal when it's 1 to 2 foot. I totally agree with them, but I hate to see someone on a big heavy log when it's head and a half. And it's just preference, but I think that riding the right thing in the right waves looks the best and feels the best.
Well, that's what I was just about to say to you. So surely that should be condition orientated, which longboarding has the, you know, perspective to have, because if it is a couple of feet, you can have your 9/8s, your single fins to cruise along and do your little drop knee cutbacks.
And are you telling me that CJ Nelson can't ride a progressive mal?
Exactly.
Are you telling me that Taylor Jenson can't ride a traditional mal? Of course they can. So why do you need to restrict them in a contest scenario for the benefit of trying to sell it to someone? You know, aren't you alienating certain aspects by doing that? Why would you expect Philip Toledo to surf a single fin at Trestles, all in the aim of being cool? Would anyone watch it?
I don't know. You saw Kelly Slater surfing Python 20 the other day, so
yeah. To be fair, those guys are that good. It probably would be worth watching.
Yeah.
But you get the point. It's merely my point of view, and call me wrong, but for me, it's about what's exciting, and watching the best guys do what they do best is the most exciting. I don't know why CJ Nelson and Taylor Jenson, as examples, couldn't go into a heat together, surf their way that they surf, and it'd be judged fairly, because it's happened before. We used to do it in this country all the time. And it's happened that single fin or traditional sort of element has really pushed through here as well. You look at the criteria for longboard contests here, and it is much the same. You're expected to just cruise and get on the nose.
Yeah.
That's okay, Mr. Tufa.
Yeah, I can't really comment on that because I don't compete, so I'm just going to agree with you and nod my head.
No. You can tell I'm a little bit passionate about it.
No, but that's cool. That's what makes it unique, and at the end of the day, people's opinions and experiences behind all that sort of thing is what can change things.
Yeah.
You could almost argue the fact that are they changing the format to see if it works? Is it making it a more visual, orgasmic experience for people to watch because you can watch it live? Or would they change the format and say, do you know what, not many people are tuning into this, let's change it up a little bit, and put people in, I don't know, let's take the longboarding tour to Chopu when it's,
Yeah.
but you see my point,
Yeah.
So I think, because even though surfing has competitively has almost kind of in competition forms changed so much since like the early 60s to where we are now, and you think of how the judging has changed, how the heat format has changed. Every competition has its own different format. There is no set format to say, yeah, this is cool. You still got your 4 to 6 man heats. WSL is running this new format now where everyone goes to the end, and then the top 5 or the top 6 at the end go to a finals day, and then they all compete together for the top spot, almost like what the National Rugby League tournament does in Australia, where or here now in this country, where the top 6 teams then go into like a playoff format, and then the winner out of that, regardless of whether you finish 6th, you could win the title at the end, which is, I kind of can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to play with the formats and mix it up, which in a sport where we think we're progressive and all that sort of thing, you could see that as they're actually looking to do something different.
Yeah, I can understand from that point of view. But the one thing I would say is that they're trying to move to the next level a little bit. I can't remember the lady who came in as the CEO. She came from tennis, didn't she? So
right.
She came into the SP and made a few mistakes. But I'm guessing that was to try and work out how they can make it as commercially viable as possible and more efficient and everything else. With the longboard tour, it's been missing for so long that what I don't want to see is it come in and it gets put itself in this sort of box, and that not be successful perhaps, and they're not able to change, or they're not able to continue it because they didn't get the followings, because it hasn't quite worked. I don't, from my point of view, I've always been much the same. Good surfing is good surfing. So why do we need to constrain it so much? Why does a board need to be a certain shape? Why does it have to have a hard rail or a soft rail or 1 fin or 3 fins? Who cares, really? Good surfing is good surfing.
What I'd like to finish this out on is a bit of a quick fire round.
Okay.
I say quick fire round, and I've said this in all the other podcasts, it always ends up being about 10 minutes.
Sorry, I might have dribbled on.
No, that's cool. So the first question is, if you could surf one fin setup for the rest of your life, would it be a single fin, twin fin, thruster, bonzer, or finless?
The option's not in there for 2+1, so I'd go thruster.
2+1 can be in there, since we're talking about longboarding.
Okay, a combination of 2+1 allows you to have a thruster.
Okay.
So
nice. Your favourite surfer and why?
There's too many to choose from.
And this always trips people up.
Yeah, it would be Kelly, or if I was to ignore the fact that Kelly exists, and if I was to ignore the fact that perhaps Tom Curran exists, Taj wins it hands down for me.
Yeah, I think he's on the new electric acid test.
Okay. No, I haven't.
I think he might be.
How he didn't win a world title, I just don't know.
Yeah. Favourite film from him is Best Bits.
Okay.
Love that film.
Right, yeah. I've seen so many surf films that they are one big blur.
Yeah, I kind of got a weird catalogue in my head.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which brings me on to the next question.
Okay.
The first surf film you've ever watched?
Do you know, I had a feeling you were going to ask this, and I was driving back from work today. I'm not sure, which did I see first? Probably Tubular Swells.
Ooh.
Or Storm Riders, sorry.
Two Aussie films.
Both of those I used to watch on repeat. I'd like to get copies of, actually.
I tried to about 5 years ago with Tubular Swells.
Yeah.
And I think I must have bought it from Australia.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a video. It was a video.
I'll ask my dad because he might have a VHS.
Oh,
if he's got any, I'll let you know.
That'd be legendary.
Because they're probably absolutely knackered because I used to spend my weekends watching them.
You'd have to take that to a video production team so they could download it and make it to a digital content.
You can buy a VHS to DVD. Whether it's any good, I don't know.
No one watches DVDs anymore.
Yeah, but then you could get DVD and put it into a digital format.
It's like a Blu-ray player,
Yeah.
or a what was the other one? Blu-ray and what was the other one? HD. Was it HD?
I have no idea.
Anyway, I'm digressing. Yeah. Last surfing film you ever watched?
Last surfing film is a really difficult one. Actually, so I do know what it was. I haven't had much chance to watch surfing videos for a while, which is something that I've been trying to work on, but having a 2-year-old means that I spend most of my time watching Peppa Pig.
It's always good.
Yeah, or I don't mind a bit of Dougie. Dougie's good.
I'll tell you what, if you've got Amazon Prime or on YouTube, Google Pete the Cat.
Okay.
It's a surfing cat.
Oh, I do.
It's amazing.
I'll find that, right? Because I've watched Boss Baby about 6 times in the last 2 days.
Oh, so. Pete the Cat, get him into that.
But so one of the boards that I'm really, really interested in at the moment. So sorry, I'm going slightly off topic. I've got a board coming that's not a Thunderbolt that I'm going to be trying, which is, I don't know whether I'm supposed to tell you this or not, but they are due. Is one of Beau's boards.
Okay.
So we're going to be trying one of those for Glenn. He's getting some in, so we're going to give those a go. They look fantastic. So. But another board that I'm really, really like the look of is the CJ Nelson Sprout, which is in a Thunderbolt Silver, I think. So it's traditional. It's the model that they had in the film Sprout.
Okay.
It's that model. It's really traditional, but it's got that added flex because it's got that Thunderbolt construction. Have you watched the videos of Thunderbolt construction?
I haven't, but I will now.
Right.
With my eyes going all over.
Oh, I know something a little bit more technical than you do, which is surprise. Watch it, unbelievable. But yeah, so I thought, all right, I need to know more about this board. So I went and sat and watched Sprout, which I hadn't watched for years and years and years.
That's so good.
And again, all of my mates out there that like traditional surfing will be laughing at me, going, "What do you mean you watched Sprout?" But I did. It's brilliant, and yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully, if they come in, to get one of those.
Last question. Dream surf trip. Again, catches people out.
Yeah, there's so many options, aren't there? I'm probably going to say the same thing that everyone says, which would be Maldives.
Boat trip.
I'd need to take the family, wouldn't I? I couldn't leave my wife and little
one. It's your dream trip, mate.
It's my dream trip.
You do what you want.
I want all of a sudden for them to really enjoy being on a boat for 3 weeks, but they probably wouldn't. So, yeah, Maldives with the family, a load of mates for 6 weeks, just surfing every day.
Legendary. Ashley Braunton, thank you for talking to me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
And that's it. If you like the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, and follow on your podcast provider. And also follow us on Instagram. Don't forget to comment on iTunes. Thanks for listening.